You know that feeling. When you think you've finally got it all figured out, like all the messy puzzle pieces of your life have finally clicked into place and you can just breathe. That was me. My name is Rebecca. I'm 32. And for a while there, I was living the life you see in magazines. The one that's supposed to make everyone else feel a little bit jealous. But let's be real. My life has always been about appearances. See, I'm the black sheep of my family. My parents, Diana and Thomas, hit the jackpot in the real estate market, and they've been living that high society, looking down their noses lifestyle ever since. Then you have my siblings. My brother, Kyle, is Dr. Goldenchild, a literal surgeon. He can do no wrong. My sister, Amanda, is a corporate lawyer, basically a shark in a designer suit. And me? I'm Rebecca, the numbers girl, the finance manager, the practical one, the useful one, but never the impressive one. I was always the reliable, boring background character in their shiny, successful movie. But I didn't care, because I had my own perfect picture. I had Liam. Liam, God, he was my partner for 5 years. He was that guy. You know the one. Insanely handsome. A smile that could disarm anyone. And he could make me laugh so hard my stomach would hurt. He was my safe space. The one person who I thought saw me. Not my family's name or my useful job. And I had Chloe, my best friend since college. My ride or die, my other half, the keeper of all my secrets. We were inseparable. The three of us, Liam, Chloe, and me. We were the perfect trio. Sunday brunches, weekend trips, late night talks. Life was good. It was perfect. And I learned the hard way that when something seems too good to be true, it's usually a lie just waiting to blow up in your face. The first crack was so small I almost missed it. Liam changed the password on his laptop. When I asked, he just smiled, kissed my forehead and said, "Oh, it's just a new security protocol from work, babe. You know how it is." And I, the woman who trusted him with my entire heart, just nodded. Of course. Then came the late nights at the office. They started happening more and more. Texts would come in, and he'd angle his phone away from me. He started getting jumpy if I walked into the room while he was on a call. A subtle distance started to grow between us. It was like a silent, invisible wall being built brick by brick, and I was pretending I couldn't see it. Of course, I poured my heart out to Chloe. She was my rock. She'd wrap me in a hug and say, "Becca, guys are just like that sometimes. He's probably just stressed with work. You know he adores you." She was so convincing. She was my best friend. I trusted her more than I trusted my own gut feeling. The breaking point wasn't a big, dramatic fight. It was silence. It was a Thursday night. Liam said he was going out with some buddies to watch the game. I had plans to visit my mom, but she canceled at the last minute, so I decided to go home early. I remember walking into our apartment. It was dark, quiet. I smiled to myself, thinking I'd be home to surprise him when he got back. I kicked off my shoes and walked up the stairs, and that's when I passed our home office. The door was cracked open just a little bit, and I heard voices, whispers. I froze. It was them. It was Liam, and it was Chloe. His voice, the same one that whispered "I love you" to me every single night, was saying things that made my blood run cold. And her voice, the one that had just comforted me days before, was giggling. A low, venomous, intimate giggle. "She's just so predictable," Chloe purred. "So by the book. You need chaos, baby. You need real passion." And then I heard Liam's reply, the words that will be burned into my brain forever. "I know," he sighed, "but Rebecca is comfortable. She's safe. She organizes everything for me. My life, my finances. Honestly, it's a good arrangement until we can get our own thing going." An arrangement. I wasn't the love of his life. I was an arrangement. I was his personal, unpaid financial manager. Standing there in that dark hallway, listening to them laugh about my predictability, something inside me just snapped. The naive, people-pleasing Rebecca who just wanted her family and her boyfriend to love her, she died right there on the landing. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was the humiliation. It was hearing my entire worth reduced to my usefulness. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I backed away, silent as a ghost. I walked down the stairs, put my shoes back on, and walked out of my home, closing the door so softly they never even knew I was there. In that moment, a new Rebecca was born. One with a shattered heart, a spreadsheet for a brain, and a sudden burning desire for revenge. They thought I was predictable? Good. I was about to be the most predictably devastating storm they had ever seen. For the next 2 weeks, I became the best actress you've ever seen. I deserved an Oscar. I went home that night, and when Liam finally strolled in around 2 a.m., smelling faintly of Chloe's perfume, I just pretended to be asleep. The next morning, I was normal Rebecca. "Hey babe, how was the game?" I asked, smiling as I made coffee. He lied right to my face. It was good, a bit boring. The ease with which he lied, it was chilling. I even saw Chloe for lunch that weekend. She sat across from me, looking me dead in the eye, and asked if I was feeling better, if Liam was being less distant. I just smiled and said, "Yeah, I think it was just a phase. You were right." The whole time I just wanted to flip the table over, but I didn't. I held it all in, because revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. They had underestimated me my whole life. My family, Liam, Chloe, they saw a reliable Rebecca. They were about to meet ruthless Rebecca. My nights became my secret war room. While Liam was asleep, I was awake. The finance manager in me, the part of me they thought was so useful, went into overdrive. My grief was fueling a level of focus I didn't even know I had. I started by digging. It's amazing what you can find when you know exactly what you're looking for. I used a data recovery software on our shared cloud. They were sloppy. They thought I was technologically clueless. Big mistake. I found everything. The late-night work meetings were hotel receipts. The boring guys' nights were reservations for 2 at romantic restaurants. I found photos. Photos I wish I could unsee. I found their text conversations, going back months. They talked about me, about my boring clothes, my predictable taste in movies, how I was too focused on saving money, all while they were spending my money. And that's when my plan started to take shape. It wasn't enough to just expose them. That was too easy. I needed them to feel the same humiliation I felt. I needed them to lose the comfortable arrangement they valued so much. The perfect stage for my little drama? Liam's upcoming 35th birthday party. He was already planning it. He wanted a huge bash at our apartment to show off to all his friends and colleagues how successful he was. Oh, it was going to be a party they'd never forget. Phase 1 of the plan. The finances. This was my domain. We had a joint account. Most of my salary went in there to cover our rent, our bills, his car payment, his designer clothes, their fancy dinners. It was our lifestyle account. My contribution was about 80% of the funds. His was, well, let's just say it was minimal. One night, at 3 a.m., I executed Operation Financial Freedom. I meticulously calculated every single penny I had ever put into that account. Then, I transferred it all to a new private bank account under my name only. I left just enough to cover next month's rent and utilities. A final parting gift from useful Rebecca. Phase 2. The apartment. The lease was in my name. My dad, in a rare moment of parental support, had co-signed for it years ago to get me a better deal. Ironic, right? I drafted a formal notice to terminate the lease with our landlord, effective the day after the party. I had it ready to send. 30 days notice. Let's see how comfortable they'd be when they were homeless. Phase 3. The public takedown. This was the masterpiece. I spent hours compiling all the evidence. The recovered texts. The hotel receipts with dates that matched his work trips. The restaurant bills. The photos. I didn't want it to be a messy, screaming confrontation. I wanted it to be a clean, corporate, brutal presentation. A case study of their secret merger. I put it all into a crisp, professional-looking slideshow. I even picked out the perfect soundtrack for the background. Something classy. For 2 weeks, I walked around my own home like a spy. I smiled. I hugged him. I discussed party decorations with Chloe on the phone. They had no idea they were planning their own execution. The day of the party, Liam came up to me while I was getting ready. He wrapped his arms around my waist, kissed my neck, and said, "You are the most amazing woman in the world. I couldn't do any of this without you." I just looked at his reflection in the mirror and smiled. My heart was a block of ice. "You have no idea," I thought. "You really have no idea." The guests were about to arrive. Showtime was approaching. The apartment was buzzing. Absolutely electric. It was exactly the scene Liam had envisioned. There must have been 60, maybe 70 people crammed into our open-plan living space. His colleagues from the marketing firm were all there, schmoozing and trying to look important. His college buddies were getting loud by the drinks table. Even my brother Kyle made an appearance, looking effortlessly cool and probably judging everyone. And right in the center of it all was Liam. He was glowing. He was wearing a new designer shirt, one that I knew for a fact was paid for out of our joint account just last week. He moved through the crowd like a king in his court, shaking hands, laughing that big, booming laugh of his. Every few minutes, his eyes would find mine across the room, and he'd give me this little smile, this "look at us, we made it" kind of look. It took every ounce of my self-control not to throw my drink in his face. Chloe was there, of course. She was playing the role of the devoted best friend perfectly. "Becca, this party is amazing. You guys are the ultimate power couple," she'd said, squeezing my arm. She was wearing a gorgeous emerald green dress. My dress, actually. One she'd borrowed from my closet a month ago and conveniently never returned. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. She floated around, making sure guests had drinks, helping me with appetizers, acting like the perfect co-host. The two of them were a well-oiled machine, performing for an audience that had no idea what the real show was. I just kept smiling. I was a ghost at my own party. I refilled glasses, made small talk, and laughed at jokes I didn't hear. Inside, my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Just a little longer, Becca. Stick to the plan. Around 10 p.m., when the energy was at its peak, Liam clinked a glass with a fork. The chatter died down. This was it, the moment he'd been waiting for. He pulled me to his side, wrapping an arm firmly around my waist. "Hey, everyone. Can I have your attention for a sec?" He boomed. The crowd turned towards us. I could feel the heat of dozens of eyes on me. "First off, thank you all for coming to celebrate my old ass getting another year older," he said, getting a laugh from the crowd. "But I can't stand here and take all the credit. This incredible party, this beautiful home, so much of my success, it's all because of this amazing woman right here." He squeezed my waist tighter. "Rebecca, my rock, my partner in everything, the one who keeps my crazy life in order. I honestly would be lost without her." People clapped and awed. I saw his boss, a serious-looking man named Mr. Harrison, give a respectful nod. Chloe was beaming from the front of the crowd, clapping enthusiastically, as if she was the president of our fan club. He leaned in and gave me a kiss. It was dry, performative. All I could taste was deceit. The crowd ate it up. As they finished clapping, I gently pulled away from him and stepped forward, taking the fork from his hand. I tapped the glass again, my hand surprisingly steady. "Thank you, Liam." "That was very sweet," I said, my voice clear and calm. It didn't even tremble. "I'd actually like to say a few words, too." Liam looked pleasantly surprised. He thought I was going to gush about him. Chloe had a smug little smile on her face. "Oh, this is going to be good," I could see her thinking. I took a deep breath. Liam's right. We have built a lot together over the past 5 years. Our partnership has been very productive. I let that hang in the air for a second, making eye contact with Chloe. Her smile faltered, just for a millisecond. "In my line of work, in finance," I continued, addressing the whole room now, "we often do presentations to showcase successful partnerships. Case studies, if you will. And I have prepared a short one for tonight. A tribute to the strong bonds that have been forged in this home." Before Liam could process what I'd just said, I took my phone out of my pocket. With one tap, I connected to the Bluetooth of our 70-inch smart TV on the wall, the one he was so proud of. The screen flickered to life. The first slide appeared. It was a beautiful, smiling photo of the three of us, Liam, Chloe, and me, from a vacation we'd taken last year. Underneath it, in big, bold, corporate-style letters, was the title, Project Nightingale, a case study in a successful merger. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Liam stared at the screen, a frown forming on his face. "Babe, what is this?" he whispered, trying to sound amused. I ignored him. I clicked to the next slide. It was a screenshot of a text exchange. It showed a message from Chloe asking, "Is she asleep yet?" And one from Liam replying, "Yeah, the little accountant is out like a light. I'm on my way." The silence in the room was instantaneous. It was so complete, so absolute. I could hear the ice cubes clinking in someone's glass across the room. I watched Chloe's face. All the color drained from it. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Liam's smile was gone, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. The next slide showed a hotel receipt from the business trip he took 2 months ago. The Grand Lux Hotel, 1 king bed, room service for 2, billed to our joint account. Then, another slide, a photo of them in that hotel room, kissing. It was unmistakable. A collective gasp went through the room. Someone in the back just said, "Oh my God." I saw Mr. Harrison, Liam's boss, take a step back, his face a thundercloud of disgust. My brother, Kyle, just stood there, his arms crossed, watching me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mix of horror and something like respect. Then I showed them their words. One slide had a quote from Chloe. "She's so predictable, so by the book." The next from Liam. "You need real passion." And the final one, also from Liam. "It's a good arrangement until we can get our own thing going." I let the slideshow continue to cycle through the evidence. More texts, more receipts. Another photo of them, this time in a restaurant, on a night he told me he was working late to meet a deadline. Liam finally found his voice. "Rebecca, turn it off," he hissed, his voice low and shaking with rage. "Turn it off, right now." He reached for my phone, but I calmly stepped away. I turned back to the crowd, my voice as even as a frozen lake. "So, as you can see, this partnership has been very successful. Just not the one you all thought you were celebrating." I looked from Liam's terrified face to Chloe's tear-streaked ashen one. "Happy 35th birthday, Liam," I said, my voice ringing with a clarity that surprised even me. "My gift to you is what you've wanted all along. Freedom. The freedom to not have to lie anymore. The freedom from your comfortable arrangement." I then turned my gaze to Chloe, who was frozen in place, looking like a trapped animal. "And Chloe, you can keep the dress. It never really suited me anyway." The silence was broken by the sound of my purse clasp clicking shut. I had it ready by the door. I walked over and picked it up. "Just one last piece of business," I announced to the room at large. "The party's over. I'd advise you all to leave in the next hour or so. The termination notice for the lease on this apartment gets delivered to the landlord tomorrow morning. Liam, Chloe, you have 30 days to find a new place to continue your merger." I didn't look back. I walked towards the front door, the crowd parting for me like the Red Sea. I could feel every single eye on my back. I didn't run. I walked, head high. As my hand touched the doorknob, I heard Liam scream my name. It was a desperate, pathetic sound. I didn't turn around. I opened the door, stepped out into the cool night air, and closed it softly behind me, leaving the beautiful, perfect world I had built to collapse into chaos behind me. And for the first time in months, I could finally breathe. Walking out that door, the click of the lock behind me felt like a gunshot in the sudden silence of the hallway. For a second, I just stood there, my back against the door, my entire body trembling. I could hear the muffled chaos erupting inside, shouting, a glass breaking, but it sounded a million miles away. It wasn't my problem anymore. I walked down the hallway, through the lobby, and out into the cool night air. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. My only thought was away. I got into my car and just started driving. No destination. Just streetlights painting yellow stripes across my dashboard. My mind was eerily quiet. It was like I had spent so much energy, so much focus on planning and executing that final scene, that there was nothing left inside. I was just an empty shell, driving. Then, my phone, which I'd tossed on the passenger seat, lit up. It was Liam. I ignored it. It lit up again, and again, and again. The screen was a constant flash of his name. Then came the texts. They started angry. One said, "What the hell did you just do? You're insane." Another, "You've ruined everything. My job, my reputation." And then, "You will regret this, Rebecca. I swear to God you will." I just watched the messages pop up, one after another, feeling nothing. It was like reading about a stranger. The man I thought I loved didn't exist. This angry, cornered little boy on my phone was the real Liam. Then, after about 10 minutes of rage, the tone shifted. It became desperate. "Becca, please come back. We need to talk about this. I know I messed up. I was stupid. But I love you, not her. Please don't throw 5 years away like this. We can fix it. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound that filled the car. Fix it? He wanted to fix it. He didn't want to fix our relationship. He wanted to fix his comfortable arrangement. He wanted me to come back and clean up his mess, smooth things over with his boss, and put his perfect life back together. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. Then, a new name popped up on my screen. Chloe. My stomach twisted into a knot. I braced myself. The text read, "I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry, Becca. Please believe me." I deleted the message without a second thought. Sorry? Sorry she got publicly humiliated? Or sorry she broke the heart of the one person who trusted her unconditionally? Her apology meant less than nothing to me. I pulled into the parking lot of the first generic, anonymous-looking hotel I could find. I just needed a room, a door I could lock. I walked up to the front desk, feeling like a robot. The concierge gave me a tired smile. "Just for one?" he asked. "Yes," I said, my voice hoarse. "Just for me." The moment I closed the hotel room door behind me, the dam broke. The adrenaline, the anger, the cold resolve, it all vanished. And what was left was the pain, a raw, gaping wound. I slid down the door and just sobbed. Not pretty, cinematic crying. I'm talking ugly, gasping sobs that shook my entire body. I cried for the 5 years I had wasted. I cried for the best friend I had lost long before I even knew it. I cried for the stupid, naive girl who believed in the perfect picture. The revenge felt good. It felt justified. But it didn't magically heal the wound. It just cauterized it. It stopped the bleeding. But the scar was still there. And right now, it was burning. I cried until I had no tears left, curled up on the cold floor of a stranger's hotel room, feeling more alone than I ever had in my entire life. I must have been there for an hour. The buzzing of my phone on the cheap wooden nightstand was the only sound. Liam again. Chloe again. A few numbers I didn't recognize. Probably his friends, or maybe hers, ready to attack or defend. I silenced it. I couldn't handle it. I just wanted the world to go away. I eventually peeled myself off the floor, washed my face with cold water, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen. I looked broken. But as I stared into my own eyes, I saw something else too. Something I hadn't seen before. A flicker of steel. I had survived the worst night of my life. I had stood up for myself. I was a mess, but I was a mess on my own terms. My phone rang again. This time I glanced at the screen, expecting to see Liam's name. But it wasn't him. It wasn't Chloe. It was my brother, Kyle. My heart stopped. Dr. Goldenchild. The one who was at the party. The one who never really talked to me unless it was a forced holiday conversation. Why was he calling me? To tell me I had embarrassed the family? To tell me I was classless and trashy? To lecture me on behalf of our parents? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the decline button. Every instinct told me to ignore it. I didn't have the strength to take a lecture from my perfect brother right now, but something made me hesitate. The memory of his face in the crowd. It wasn't disgust. It wasn't judgment. It was something else. Shock. Yes, but something more. With a deep, shaky breath, I answered the call. I didn't say anything. I just waited. There was silence on the other end for a moment, and then I heard his voice, quieter than I'd ever heard it before. Rebecca. And in that one word, I heard none of the judgment I expected. Just concern. And I had no idea what was coming next. My brother's voice came through the phone, and it was so devoid of the usual confident, slightly condescending tone he always used with me that I almost didn't recognize it. It was quiet, hesitant. I held my breath, waiting for the lecture, the "what have you done to the family's reputation" speech that I was sure was coming. I finally found my voice, but it was just a whisper. "Yeah, it's me." There was a long pause. I could hear the faint sound of cars in the background on his end. He must have stepped outside. "Where are you?" he asked. The question wasn't accusatory. It was just a question. "A hotel," I said, my eyes scanning the generic art on the wall of my beige sanctuary. "I don't know. The first one I found." "Are you okay?" That was the question that broke me. Not, "What were you thinking?" or "How could you do that?" Just, "Are you okay?" It was such a simple, human question, and it was one I hadn't heard from a member of my immediate family in, well, maybe ever. A fresh wave of tears pricked my eyes, hot and sudden. I swallowed hard, refusing to cry again. "No, Kyle, I'm not okay," I said, the honesty feeling raw and dangerous. "But I will be." He was quiet again for a moment. I imagined him on the other end, the perfect surgeon, probably in his perfectly tailored suit from the party, trying to process the messy, emotional chaos he'd just witnessed. He was a man who fixed things with scalpels and precision, not with words. "What you did back there," he started, and I braced myself. "Here it comes," was the bravest goddamn thing I've ever seen. I literally blinked. I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" "I'm serious, Rebecca," he said, and his voice was firm now, filled with a conviction I'd never heard directed at me. "I stood there and watched you dismantle your whole life with the precision of a surgeon. It was brutal, yeah. It was a goddamn nuclear bomb, but it was honest. And you stood up for yourself. I've never seen you do that." I sank down onto the edge of the stiff hotel bed, the phone pressed hard against my ear. This was not the conversation I had prepared for. I couldn't take it anymore, I stammered, feeling the need to explain myself to him. Of all people, the lies, the way they talked about me, like I was just a convenience, an appliance. "I know," he said, and the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't a placating "I know." It was an "I understand" that felt heavy with unspoken meaning. They see what's useful. Mom and Dad are the same way. The mention of our parents made my stomach clench. "Are they going to be furious?" I asked, picturing my mother's horrified face, my father's disappointed scowl. "About the scene I made? The family name?" Kyle let out a short, humorless laugh. "Oh, they're furious. But not for the reason you think. I called them on my way out. Dad's already on the warpath." "About what? The public spectacle?" "No," Kyle said, his voice dropping. "He's furious at Liam. He's furious that someone took advantage of his daughter. Mom is just in shock. I think she's reevaluating some things." He paused. "Becca, you have to understand. We all saw you as the one who had it figured out. The stable one. The one who had the normal, happy life with the perfect guy. We were all kind of jealous." "Jealous?" My perfect brother, the golden child, was jealous of me? The concept was so foreign, so utterly absurd that I couldn't even form a response. "Don't sound so surprised," he said, as if reading my mind. "My life, it looks good on paper. Top surgeon, big house, fancy car. But it's what Mom and Dad wanted. It's the path they laid out. I go to work. I cut people open. I stitch them back up. I go home to an empty house. I make them proud. But am I happy? Most days I don't even know what that means. You built a life for yourself. You found someone. You seemed genuinely happy. And we all thought, well, at least Rebecca got it right." My mind was reeling. This entire time, I had looked at my brother and sister with this mix of resentment and awe, believing they were the pinnacle of success, the children our parents actually valued. And he was looking back at me, seeing something I couldn't see in myself. "He was cheating on me with my best friend, Kyle," I said, the words still tasting like poison. "It wasn't real. None of it was. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry," he said, with a sincerity that felt like a balm on my raw nerves. "That guy is a piece of trash. And Chloe, I never liked her. Always thought she was a little too eager to be in your shadow." He sighed. "Look, I know we haven't been close, and that's my fault. I got caught up in the family game, the competition. But tonight, I saw my sister. Not the numbers girl. Not the reliable one. I saw Rebecca. And I'm proud of you." A single tear escaped and traced a path down my cheek. This time it wasn't a tear of pain or anger. It was something else. Relief, maybe. "What do I do now?" I asked, the question hanging in the sterile air of the hotel room. My life was a pile of rubble. The apartment was gone. The relationship was gone. My best friend was gone. For tonight, you stay put. Get some sleep if you can, he said, his voice taking on a practical, doctor-like tone. "I'm sending you the address of a condo the hospital keeps for visiting physicians. It's empty right now. Go there in the morning. The keys will be with the concierge under your name. It's secure, it's private, and no one will know where you are. Take as long as you need." I was floored. "Kyle, don't argue," he said, cutting me off gently. "Let me do this. Let me be a brother. For once." He paused again. And Becca? Don't answer their calls. Not Liam's, not Chloe's. They don't deserve to hear your voice right now. Let them sit in the mess they made. You just focus on you. We stayed on the phone for a few more minutes. We didn't talk about the drama. We just talked. He asked me about my work. Really asked, for the first time. I asked him about a difficult case he'd mentioned a few months ago. It was stilted and awkward, like two strangers learning a new language, but it was real. It was the first real conversation we'd had in probably 15 years. When we hung up, the hotel room didn't feel so lonely anymore. The silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel feeling like a soldier after a battle, exhausted, bruised, but alive. I drove to the address Kyle had sent me. It was a sleek, modern high-rise downtown, the kind of place I always admired but never thought I'd live in. The concierge handed me the keys with a polite smile. No questions asked. The apartment was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a breathtaking view of the city. It was minimalist, clean, and blessedly empty. It was a blank slate. I spent the day in a daze. I ordered groceries to be delivered. I bought a few changes of clothes online. I answered a text from my sister Amanda that just said, "Kyle told me what happened. I'm booking a flight. I'll be there Friday. We're ordering pizza and trashing them both. And Mom and Dad." I actually smiled at that one. My phone was a minefield I refused to walk through. I could see the notifications piling up. Dozens of missed calls from Liam. A string of frantic, pleading, and then angry voicemails. A similar barrage from Chloe. I deleted them all without listening. Kyle was right. They didn't deserve my time or my energy. The biggest surprise came late that afternoon. An email. The subject line was, "From your father." My heart did a painful lurch. My dad was not an email person. He was a "have my assistant call you" person. I clicked it open with a sense of dread. The email was short. It said, "Rebecca, Kyle explained the situation. I have made 2 calls this morning. The first was to Mr. Harrison at Liam's firm. I've known him for 20 years. I explained in no uncertain terms the character of the man he has representing his company. I believe his employment there will be terminated by the end of the week. The second call was to the managing partner of the real estate law firm where Chloe works. It turns out her father is one of my biggest competitors. I made sure the partner understood the kind of loyalty and discretion his new associate possesses. Her career in this city is over. This does not fix the hurt. I know that. But in our world, reputation is capital, and they are now both bankrupt. Call me when you're ready. Dad." I read it once. Then I read it again. My father, the cold, calculating businessman who only ever showed affection through financial gestures, had just gone to war for me. He hadn't called to yell at me. He hadn't called to lecture me. He had picked up the phone and systematically dismantled their professional lives with the same ruthless efficiency he used to close a real estate deal. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't an "I love you." But in his language, in the language of my family, it was the most fiercely protective thing he had ever done. I stood there, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle on, and realized that in blowing up my life, I had inadvertently sent a shockwave through my family, and the pieces were starting to fall back together in a shape I never, ever could have predicted. The black sheep was suddenly the catalyst, and the golden children, and even the king and queen were rallying around her. The battle with Liam and Chloe was over, but it felt like a whole new, much more complicated chapter was just beginning, and I had absolutely no idea how to navigate it. The next few days in that condo were strange. It was like living in a bubble of silence suspended high above the city. The world outside was still spinning, but in my glass-walled sanctuary, time had slowed down. My phone remained on silent, a ticking time bomb of digital noise I refused to engage with. The only connections to the outside world I allowed were the texts from Kyle, checking in with a simple, "You good?" and the occasional, surprisingly witty message from Amanda about her impending arrival. I didn't feel strong. I felt hollowed out. I would stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows for hours, just watching the cars move like tiny blood cells through the city's arteries. I was trying to process the whiplash of it all. In the span of 48 hours, I had gone from a woman living a lie, to a vengeful fury, to a sobbing wreck on a hotel floor, to this, the protected daughter, the respected sister. It was a role I had never played. and the costume felt unfamiliar and strange. Liam and Chloe tried everything. After the phone calls went unanswered, the emails started. Liam's were a pathetic mix of groveling apologies, nostalgic reminiscences of our good times, and veiled threats about how I was being immature. He wrote, "You can't just erase 5 years, Becca. We built a life. Are you really going to throw it all away over one mistake?" One mistake. The way he minimized it, the way he tried to frame my reaction as the problem, only solidified my resolve. It was like listening to a stranger trying to sell me a broken product. Chloe's emails were harder to read. They were filled with self-loathing and desperate pleas for forgiveness. "I hate myself for what I did," she wrote. "You were my sister, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I was lonely and stupid, and I let his attention make me feel important. Please, just talk to me. Let me explain." Her pain felt real, but it was a selfish pain. It was the pain of being caught, of her own life falling apart. The poison was in the wound, and her apology was just a frantic attempt to suck it out before she too succumbed. I couldn't find an ounce of pity in my heart for her. I just deleted them, one by one. They were ghosts from a life that was no longer mine. Friday arrived, and with it, my sister. I buzzed Amanda up, my stomach in knots. Kyle's support had been a shock, but Amanda and I had a different history. We were classic middle and younger sister rivals. She was the sharp, ambitious, perfectly put-together lawyer. I was the quiet, practical, boring one. We loved each other, I suppose, in the way you love a distant cousin you see at holidays. But we weren't friends. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. She stepped out, not in one of her intimidating power suits, but in yoga pants and a worn-out university sweatshirt. She wasn't carrying a briefcase. She was wrestling with 2 giant grocery bags. She looked at me, her eyes scanning my face, and for a second, I saw the little girl I used to build forts with in our living room. "You look like hell," she said, her voice blunt as always. "You look comfortable," I replied, a small smile touching my lips. "Yeah, well, I figured you didn't need a lawyer right now. You needed a sister," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. She dropped the bags on the kitchen island. They were overflowing with junk food. Pints of ice cream, bags of chips, chocolate bars, and 3 bottles of expensive red wine. The official, Your Life Exploded care package. That night, we didn't talk about what happened. Not at first. We sat on the floor in our pajamas, watching bad 90s rom-coms, the kind we used to watch as kids. We opened a bottle of wine, then a second. We ate ice cream straight from the carton. It was easy. It was normal. It was a pocket of peace in the middle of a hurricane. Around midnight, after the second bottle of wine was half gone, she turned to me, her expression serious. "Okay, let's talk about it. Tell me everything. Not the party part. Kyle gave me the highlight reel, which was epic, by the way. Tell me the before part, the part that hurts." And so I did. I told her everything. About the changed password, the hushed phone calls, the growing distance. I told her about the things I'd ignored, the little red flags I'd painted white because I wanted so badly for the picture to be perfect. I told her about standing in the hallway, listening to their voices, the words arrangement and predictable branding themselves onto my soul. I talked for over an hour, the words pouring out of me, a confession to the one person I always felt I had to compete with. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, her sharp lawyer's eyes watching me, absorbing every detail. When I was finally done, my voice hoarse, she was quiet for a long time. "He never deserved you," she finally said, her voice thick with an anger that surprised me. "None of them did. Not him. Not Chloe. Becca, you were the only one of us who went out and tried to build a life based on something real. On love. Kyle and I, we just followed the blueprint Mom and Dad drew for us. We built our lives on ambition. You tried to build yours on happiness. It's not your fault that the foundation you chose turned out to be made of bullshit. I feel so stupid," I whispered, the shame I'd been holding back finally surfacing. "How did I not see it?" "Because you're a good person," she said fiercely, topping off my wine glass. "You're a trusting person. You don't walk around assuming the people who claim to love you are secretly screwing you over. That's not stupidity. That's decency. Their lack of it is not a reflection of your intelligence." She took a sip of her wine. And for what it's worth, Dad's reaction? That wasn't just about his reputation. I haven't seen him that personally angry on someone's behalf since ever. And Kyle, he won't shut up about you. He called me 3 times on my way to the airport. He's acting like he just discovered a long-lost sibling. We stayed up until 3 a.m., talking more than we had in the past decade. She told me about the pressure she was under at her firm, the loneliness of her own life, the feeling that she was on a treadmill she couldn't get off of. It was the first time I'd ever seen a crack in her perfect corporate armor. In that moment, we weren't the lawyer and the accountant. We were just sisters, sitting on the floor, surrounded by junk food, figuring things out. The next day, she went into what she called practical support mode. "Okay," she announced over coffee. "First, your stuff. We're hiring movers. You're not setting foot in that apartment again. We'll make a list of what you want, they'll pack it, and we'll put it in storage until you figure out your next move. You'll never have to see his pathetic face again. Second, communication. You need to send one, and only one, final message to both of them. Something clear, concise, and legally sound that says, 'Do not contact me again.' I'll draft it. It will make any further contact harassment. Third, you. You can stay here as long as Kyle lets you, but you need your own space, your own life. We're going apartment hunting, not for anything permanent, just to see what's out there. To remind you that you can build a new home, one that's just yours." And that's what we did. She drafted a cold, clinical email that I sent to both Liam and Chloe. The digital communication stopped almost immediately. The movers came on Monday. I gave them a list, and by the end of the day, all my worldly possessions, the artifacts of my old life, were packed away in a sterile storage unit. The feeling was liberating. Apartment hunting with Amanda was an experience. She was ruthless. She'd walk into a place, take one look, and declare, "Nope, the natural light is depressing," or "This kitchen is an insult to anyone who has ever owned a pan." But she was also incredibly supportive. She'd watch my face, and if she saw a flicker of interest, she'd say, "Okay, let's explore this. What do you like about it? What would you change?" She wasn't trying to find an apartment. She was trying to help me find my apartment. A week later, I found it. It was smaller than my old place, in a neighborhood I'd always loved, but Liam had deemed too bohemian. It had a small balcony overflowing with someone else's forgotten plants, a big, sunny kitchen, and beautiful old hardwood floors. It felt warm. It felt like a place where someone could actually be happy. I signed the lease the next day, using the money I had reclaimed from our joint account, my freedom fund, as Amanda called it. My family's reaction continued to be a source of constant surprise. My mother called. It was an awkward, stilted conversation. She didn't know what to say, so she reverted to what she knew. Logistics. "Do you need help with furniture? I can have our designer call you." It was her way of helping, her way of showing she cared. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I politely declined, telling her I wanted to do it myself, and for the first time she just said, "Okay, dear, I understand." The day I moved into my new apartment, Kyle and Amanda both showed up, not with movers or designers, but in jeans and t-shirts, ready to work. Kyle, the renowned surgeon, spent 3 hours trying to assemble a bookshelf from IKEA, swearing under his breath. Amanda, the high-powered lawyer, was on her hands and knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor of my empty living room, eating out of the box, just like we had in the condo, looking at them, my 2 perfect siblings, laughing about Kyle's inability to follow simple instructions. I felt a shift deep inside me. The resentment I had carried for them for so long, the feeling of being the overlooked black sheep, had dissolved. It was replaced by a tentative, fragile, but very real sense of connection. They weren't just the golden children anymore. They were Kyle and Amanda, my brother and my sister. That night, after they left, I stood on my little balcony, looking at the thriving, neglected plants. I decided I would learn how to take care of them. I was alone, in my own apartment, in a life that was entirely my own making. It wasn't the perfect picture I had dreamed of. It was messy and uncertain and a little bit scary. But for the first time in a very, very long time, it was real, and I was finally the main character in my own story. The reconstruction had begun. It's funny how time works. For a long time, my life was measured in 5-year plans, financial quarters, and relationship anniversaries. Now I measure it in seasons. I measure it by which plants on my balcony need repotting, or by how long it takes for a bottle of wine to breathe before my siblings arrive for our weekly dinner. It's been a little over a year since the party, a year since I detonated my life and walked out of the rubble. For months after, I felt like I was learning to walk again. Every step was tentative. I had to rediscover the simple things. What kind of art I liked on my walls, what music I enjoyed listening to on a quiet morning, what my own laughter sounded like when it wasn't trying to please someone else. My apartment, which started as an empty shell, slowly became a reflection of me. Not the reliable Rebecca from the suburbs, but the real one. I painted one wall a deep, moody blue that Liam would have hated. I bought a ridiculously comfortable, oversized velvet couch instead of the sleek, modern one we'd had. And my balcony. Well, my balcony became my therapy. Those forgotten, dying plants I inherited, I learned their names. I read books, watched hours of videos. I learned about soil pH and sunlight requirements, and the delicate art of pruning away the dead parts to make way for new growth. The metaphor was not lost on me. As my little urban garden began to thrive, I felt like I was too. Each new leaf, each unexpected bloom, felt like a small personal victory. My relationship with my family continued to be the most unexpected plot twist of all. Our weekly dinners became a non-negotiable ritual. Sometimes they were at my place, sometimes at Kyle's ridiculously sterile but expensive-looking house, and occasionally, we'd even brave our parents' formal dining room. Kyle, Dr. Golden Child, started taking pottery classes. Can you believe it? He said after our talk, he realized his hands could create things other than perfect incisions. Most of what he makes are lopsided, ugly mugs, but he's happier than I've ever seen him. He started dating a musician, a woman who finds his awkwardness charming and doesn't care what hospital he works at. For the first time, he's building a life that looks good to him, not just on paper. Amanda, my fierce sister, did something even more shocking. She quit her corporate law firm. She told us one night, over a pizza I'd made from scratch in my sunny kitchen, that she was tired of fighting for corporations. She's now working for a nonprofit that provides legal aid to low-income families. She makes a fraction of what she used to, works even harder, but she comes to our dinners with stories that matter, her eyes shining with purpose instead of stress. She and I are closer than I ever was with Chloe. We have a shorthand, a real sisterhood forged in the fire of my collapse and her own quiet revolution. And my parents, they're trying. They're like aging monoliths learning to bend. My mother started asking me about my garden. She even brought me a rare orchid once, a clumsy but sweet peace offering. My father and I talk on the phone every couple of weeks. We don't talk about feelings. Not really. We talk about the market, about business. But the subtext has changed. He asks for my opinion now. He sees me not just as his daughter, but as a peer, a sharp financial mind in her own right. In their own flawed parental way, they're proud of the woman I became after the fall, more than they ever were of the woman I was pretending to be. Of course, the question everyone eventually asks, the one you're probably wondering about, is, what happened to them? Liam and Chloe. I didn't seek out the information, but in a city this connected, news travels. As my father had predicted, Liam was fired. The public humiliation, coupled with a quiet word from a man my father had done business with for 2 decades, made him toxic. He tried to find another marketing job at the same level, but his reputation preceded him. The last I heard, he had moved back to his hometown, was living with his parents, and was selling insurance. His comfortable arrangement had evaporated, and he was left with just himself, a reality I don't think he was prepared for. Chloe's fate was similar. The legal community is small and incredibly gossipy. The story of her indiscretion spread like wildfire. Being tied to a scandal involving a competitor's family made her unemployable at any respectable firm in the city. She also moved away. I got a letter from her about 6 months ago, forwarded from my old address. It was long, handwritten, and filled with what seemed like genuine remorse. She said she was in therapy, trying to understand why she sought validation by destroying the people closest to her. She didn't ask for forgiveness, only to explain. I read it, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than anger. It was a distant, detached pity. I folded the letter, put it in a box, and let it go. Her healing was her journey, and it no longer had anything to do with mine. They tried to build a life together, apparently. After the party, they scrambled to find a new apartment, but their relationship wasn't built on love or respect. It was built on stolen moments and a shared betrayal. It was a partnership of convenience. And when the convenience was gone, when they were just two disgraced people with no money and no social standing, there was nothing left to hold them together. The real passion they talked about couldn't survive the harsh light of reality. Their relationship imploded within 3 months. It was a house of cards in a hurricane. Did I take pleasure in their downfall? In the beginning, maybe a little. It felt like justice, like karma. But now, a year later, I realize their failure is irrelevant to my success. My happiness isn't defined by their misery. My peace doesn't come from their chaos. It comes from right here. It comes from the quiet mornings with my coffee. It comes from laughing so hard with my sister that I snort. It comes from watching my brother find joy in something imperfect. It comes from the satisfying feeling of sinking my hands into fresh soil. I went on a date a few weeks ago. It was the first one I'd even considered. He's an architect, a kind man with a quiet laugh and gentle eyes. He asked me what I did for a living, and I told him I was a finance manager. Then he asked me what I was passionate about, and I spent 20 minutes talking about my garden. He didn't find it boring or predictable. He just listened, and then he asked if he could see it sometime. I don't know if it will go anywhere, and for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that. There's no 5-year plan. There's no puzzle I'm trying to force into place. I'm not looking for someone to complete a perfect picture. I've learned that the best things in life aren't perfect. They're real. They're the messy, lopsided, resilient things that have been through the fire and somehow, against all odds, managed to hold together. The goal isn't to build a life that looks perfect from the outside. The goal is to build a life that feels good from the inside. And finally, it does.